Masters and blah, blah, blah. And the first two paragraphs were basically about my temper and how I didn't really, was unhappy all the time and get pissed off all the time and whatever. And
he's got to get on his knees to do that, and he doesn't want to get his pants dirty because he's a professional golfer. He's a stylish dude.
They say Craig Stadler wasted his career. Picture him now at 72, sitting alone in a quiet Florida home, looking back on what might seem like a life of missed opportunities and crushing losses. The Walrus, they called him, that wild, mustached figure who once ruled Augusta National, only to watch his career slip away into 7 long years of nothing. A Masters champion reduced to a footnote, fierce competitor who seemed to lose his edge when it mattered most. But before you write him off as just another sad sports story, you need to hear what really happened. Because behind the anger, the heartbreak, and the pain that followed him off the golf course, there is something remarkable, something that changes everything we thought we knew about this man. The truth is far more complicated than any headline could capture. Craig Stadler burst onto the professional golf scene in 1976 after winning the U.S. Amateur in 1973. Standing 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighing 250 pounds with that thick, bushy mustache, he earned the nickname the Walrus. He was recognized as one of the best sand players on tour, able to escape bunkers like magic. If you remember watching Craig Stadler or saw him win that Masters in 1982, drop a comment below and tell us what you remember most about the Walrus. The year 1982 was when everything peaked. He won the PGA Tour money list that season, but the real prize came at Augusta National during the Masters tournament. Stadler held a 3-stroke lead entering the final round. By the turn, that lead had ballooned to 6 strokes. He was playing the best golf of his life on the biggest stage imaginable. The green jacket seemed like a formality at that point. Then Augusta did what Augusta does. It chewed him up. He stumbled to 4 over par on the back 9, watching his huge lead evaporate stroke by agonizing stroke until Dan Pohl caught him at the finish line. The pressure was suffocating. Years of work coming down to sudden death. They headed to a playoff, and you could see the tension in every movement Stadler made. But he found composure when it mattered most. Stadler made a routine par on the first extra hole while Pohl could not match it. Just like that, Craig Stadler became a Masters champion. The relief on his face said everything. You would think winning the Masters would launch Stadler into dominance. You would think wrong. After 1983, the wins dried up completely. 7 full years without a single victory. This was a man who just won the Masters, who led the money list, and he could not win anything for 7 straight years. Those were supposed to be his prime years. During those brutal years, his temper became legendary. Ugly frowns spread across his face after bad shots. Profanity flew. He slammed clubs into the ground. But here is what most people missed. Stadler was not angry at the world. All that rage was aimed inward, straight at himself. The anger was his way of venting frustration so he could immediately refocus and hit the next shot. His first wife, Sue, understood this better than anyone. She said Craig was very careful to leave that stuff on the course. When he came home, the anger stayed behind on the 18th green. He did not bring it into their house or take it out on his family. That ability to separate his competitive fire from his personal life became a survival skill. It let him endure those 7 years of losing without completely falling apart. It prepared him, though he did not know it then, for battles much harder than any golf tournament. The drought finally ended in 1991 when Stadler won the Tour Championship, beating Russ Cochran in a playoff on the second extra hole. That victory felt like a dam breaking. 7 years of pressure and frustration released all at once. Stadler proved to himself and everyone watching that he could still win, that those prime years had not been completely wasted after all. Craig Stadler is a father to 2 sons, Kevin and Chris. Kevin followed his dad into professional golf and earned his own nickname, Smallrus, a playful twist on his father's famous moniker. Kevin made it to the PGA Tour and carved out his own career in the sport. But the relationship between father and son got complicated after Craig divorced Sue, Kevin's mother. Divorce has a way of fracturing families even when everyone means well. In 2014, Kevin spoke honestly about the distance that had grown between them. He said he was not as close with his dad as he used to be, but he was still his dad, and it was fine. That kind of honesty cuts deep because it shows the real cost of broken families, even when everyone tries to move forward with grace. The words were measured and careful, revealing years of complicated feelings wrapped in acceptance. It was the kind of relationship many divorced fathers know too well, where love persists, but closeness becomes harder to maintain. Despite the strain, 2014 brought a moment neither of them would ever forget. Craig and Kevin Stadler became the first father and son duo to compete together in the same Masters tournament. Craig described the experience as emotional in a very good way. He said he had envisioned this moment for years, dreamed about it, hoped it would happen someday. Standing on that Augusta National property with his son, both of them there as competitors, bridged some of the distance between them. It was not a complete fix for everything that had gone wrong, but but it was something. It was a shared milestone that reminded them blood still mattered, that family bonds can bend without breaking completely. After his divorce from Sue, Craig found new ground with a woman named Jan Zumbrunnen. They married in 2010, starting a fresh chapter together. The couple settled into a magnificent home high in the pines of Evergreen, Colorado. That home was not just a place to live, it became a symbol of stability for Stadler, who had spent decades traveling from tournament to tournament, living out of hotels and rental houses. Now he had roots again. He had a partner who shared his values. His focus shifted from chasing more PGA Tour wins to playing on the Champions Tour and building a life centered on something bigger than golf. For the first time in years, Stadler felt grounded. He was no longer just the walrus chasing trophies. He was a husband building a home and a legacy that mattered beyond scoreboards. Jan Stadler became deeply involved with Evergreen Christian Outreach, known locally as ECHO. This nonprofit does critical work in the community, providing food and shelter to people who need it, offering counseling to those struggling with mental health, and helping folks find jobs when they feel lost and unemployed. Jan was not just a donor writing checks from the sidelines. She served as an active board member, pouring her energy and vision into making ECHO stronger and more effective. Craig joined her in this work. The Stadlers became known around Evergreen not as famous golf people, but as dedicated community figures who cared about their neighbors. They dreamed big dreams together, and those dreams revolved around expanding ECHO's reach, so more people could get the help they desperately needed. But peace for Stadler never stayed for long. Jan was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, known as ALS. This disease attacks the nerve cells in your brain and spinal cord that control voluntary muscle movement. Over time, those cells die. Your muscles weaken. You lose the ability to walk, to use your hands, to speak, to swallow, eventually to breathe. Your mind stays sharp the whole time, fully aware of everything your body can no longer do. There is no cure. Craig Stadler, the man who used anger as a tool to control outcomes on the golf course, suddenly faced something he could not control at all. He cared for her as the disease progressed. He watched her decline. And in June 2021, Jan Stadler passed away. That moment, more than any missed putt or lost tournament, became the defining tragedy of Craig Stadler's life. He had survived 7 years without a win. He had endured the end of his first marriage. He had dealt with injuries that eventually forced him off the tour. But nothing compared to losing Jan. Nothing even came close. The woman who gave him stability, who shared his vision for giving back, who made him believe in second chances was gone, and he was left holding memories that hurt too much to keep close. 3 months after she died, Stadler sold their magnificent home in Evergreen. He left Colorado completely and moved to Florida. Some people might look at that decision and see a man running away from pain, but it was more complicated than that. That house was filled with memories of Jan when she was healthy, laughing in the kitchen, planning echo projects at the dining table, and it held memories of Jan when she was dying, when ALS stole pieces of her day by day. Every room held ghosts. Every corner whispered reminders of what he had lost. Moving was not about giving up. It was about survival. It was about finding a way to keep breathing when the weight of grief made every breath feel impossible. Before Jan died, while she was still fighting ALS, there was the matter of the Echo Community Center. The organization needed a new building to consolidate all its programs under one roof. Jan had been the driving force behind securing a former Safeway building for this purpose. Her vision and resourcefulness connected Echo's leadership with the building's owner, leading to generous sale terms and the creation of what everyone hoped would become a permanent home for the nonprofit. The building needed extensive renovation. Walls had to come down, new ones had to go up, floors needed replacing. It was hard, physical work. Craig Stadler, despite having a total left hip replacement back in 2010 and chronic back problems including damage to his L4 vertebra from years of lifting and twisting during his golf career, threw himself into the labor. He loaded 120 sacks of concrete into his truck. He unloaded them. He carried them into the construction site one by one. His body protested with every lift. Later, when someone asked about it, he made a joke. He said no wonder he does not play golf anymore, but beneath that humor was real pain. His body was breaking down. His muscles screamed. His back gave out on him. Yet he kept working because this was Jan's dream. And if he could not save her from ALS, at least he could build something lasting in her name. The physical pain was almost welcome. It gave him something tangible to fight against when everything else felt impossible to control. The physical effort became a different kind of catharsis than the anger he used to vent on golf courses. Back then, he was fighting against himself, against his own mistakes and mental errors. Now he was fighting against the powerlessness of watching someone die. The concrete was heavy and real. Each bag he carried was tangible progress toward a goal. It gave him something to do with his hands and his pain. It let him turn grief into bricks and mortar. By 2022, the Echo Center was complete. The organization planned a dedication ceremony to mark the occasion. Craig Stadler, now living in Florida, traveled back to Colorado for the event. About 50 supporters and volunteers gathered to celebrate the new facility and honor the people who made it possible. A tribute plaque had been prepared. It recognized Jan Stadler as a beloved and revered Echo board member, without whose vision, resourcefulness, and initiative this home for Echo would not exist. Craig Stadler himself mounted that plaque to the brick wall at the entrance. When it was secure, when Jan's name and image were permanently fixed to the building she had fought so hard to create, something happened. Stadler, a man who had spent decades carefully controlling his emotions in public, who left his anger on golf courses and kept his personal feelings private, was visibly moved. He stood there for a moment, looking at her face frozen in bronze, that smile he would never see again in real life. He turned toward the bronze image of John's smiling face on that plaque, and he kissed it. Right there in front of everyone. He kissed the image of his wife, the woman he lost to ALS, the woman whose dream he had literally built with his own damaged hands. The crowd watched in silence, witnessing something raw and real that transcended any golf tournament drama they had ever seen. That moment tells you everything you need to know about how Craig Stadler really lives now. Yes, he carries sadness. Yes, he deals with chronic pain from old injuries. Yes, his professional golf career is over. But his life is not defined by passive despair or retreat into bitterness. He is actively mourning while simultaneously preserving meaning and legacy. The same competitive fire that once drove him to win tournaments now drives him to honor John's memory and continue the charitable work they started together. Stadler's body has essentially retired from competitive golf. As of early 2023, he confirmed he had not played professionally in 2.5 years. The accumulated damage from decades of swinging clubs, combined with that hip replacement and recurring back problems, finally forced him to step away from the game that made him famous. He enjoyed a brilliant second act on the Champions Tour, winning 9 times, including being named Player of the Year in 2004 when he led the money list. But eventually, your body sends a message you cannot ignore, and Craig Stadler's body told him it was done. Still, he maintains deep ties to the golf world. He never misses the Champions Dinner at the Masters, calling it his favorite place anywhere. He participates in events like the Par 3 contest. He shows up because Augusta National represents the peak of his competitive life, and that green jacket he won back in 1982 still means everything. Those annual returns to Augusta are pilgrimages of sorts, reminders of who he once was and what he accomplished when his body could still deliver on what his mind demanded. But his real focus now extends far beyond golf. Stadler continues the extensive charitable work he and Jan built together. He dedicates time to youth golf programs, helping kids learn the game and develop character through competition. He supports military programs like Warfighter Sports, which serves severely injured service members, giving back to people who sacrificed for the country. He works with health foundations and Water Hope, an organization fighting to provide clean drinking water to communities around the world that lack this basic human necessity. Every charitable appearance, every event he attends carries John's spirit forward. He is living for both of them now, doing the work they plan to do together. Recently, Stadler underwent cataract surgery to address vision problems. It is another reminder that aging is relentless and unforgiving, but he takes care of what he can control and keeps moving forward. Now, about that idea that Craig Stadler wasted his career. Look at the full picture. This is a man who won 30 professional tournaments, including a Masters championship. He conquered a 7-year winless drought. He dominated the Champions Tour. He raised 2 sons. He married a woman who shared his values. When that woman was diagnosed with a terminal illness, he cared for her. When she died, he honored her by finishing her project. He loaded concrete until his back screamed. He mounted a plaque and kissed her image because his love mattered more than his pride. The anger Craig Stadler once used to survive competitive failures transformed into something deeper. The same intensity that made him slam clubs now pushes him to show up for charities and build community centers and preserve legacies. His real victory was learning how to live with heartbreak and still give back. The Walrus evolved into a man of quiet dignity who understands that life delivers blows you cannot control, but you get to choose how you respond. Craig Stadler chose to honor what he lost by building something that lasts. So if you think his story deserves to be remembered, not just for the golf, but for the humanity behind the nickname, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what you learned about Craig Stadler that surprised you. Tell us about the people in your life who found light in darkness. Because this is not just a sports story. This is a story about resilience, about turning anger into purpose, and about discovering that even when life breaks your heart, you can still find meaning if you refuse to give up. Craig Stadler lives in Florida now, 72 years old, dealing with the physical aftermath of a brutal athletic career and the emotional aftermath of losing his wife to ALS. His body carries the scars of decades on tour. His heart carries the weight of losing the woman who changed his life. But he is not defeated. He is not wasted. He is a man who learned that the hardest battles have nothing to do with trophies or scoreboards. They are about choosing love over bitterness, legacy over despair, and action over surrender. They are about showing up even when your back hurts and your heart aches because someone you loved believed in making the world better. That is how Craig Stadler really lives. And there is nothing sad about it. There is only a man who refused to let grief have the final word.